Good evening, good morning, and good night. Welcome to Inappropriate Radio. It's your host, Shauna. Let's get into this. Okay, so I'm not exactly sure why the phone sounded like that yesterday or what was going on. I usually don't play back the segments, but something told me to listen. I do not know what happened. In a nutshell, look up the mirror neurons and the common ancestor theory, okay? And you guys could follow along. I could re-record it, but it's just so many notes that I wrote down. It's crazy. But tonight we're going to be talking about the Delta 32 mutation. It's called the CCR5 gene mutation. It's called the chemokine, okay? Chemokine, CHEMO, kine, KINE. It's a receptor that regulates the trafficking and the functioning of the T lymphocytes, the macrophages, and the immature dendritic cells. And it's a protein that sits on the surface of the white blood cells. Now, let's keep in mind that gene mutations are deletions of genes, right? So this particular gene being deleted has allowed its host to be immune or resistant to the HIV virus. The gene can be inherited by both parents, but that is the only way someone can be fully resistant as far as this particular gene goes. The Delta 32, if you get it from one parent, you still can catch it. You're still at risk. But if you get it from both, there's no way that the virus can attach itself to this particular gene, right? So this gene is especially abundant in Northern Europe and Western China. 10% of Europeans and Americans have it, and then more than 50% of Mediterranean people have it. It has not been found in Africa, East Asia, or American Indians. 1% of the people who have it in total, all over, have inherited from both parents. So even though so many different people have it, only 1% of that entire population has actually inherited this gene from both parents. Now, this is really interesting because they say that Black women carry the Eve gene. We have the mitochondria gene that enables us to produce offspring with the most variations in our genes. So I find it really, really odd that we would be lacking that as a whole. I just think that's really weird that we will be lacking this particular mutation. But then again, when you think about it, if the gene has been erased and we have the most variations in our genes, I guess that is where it would make sense. But I just still think that's really crazy that we have the most variations and we don't have that particular gene. To be further investigated, right? So, the thing with this particular mutation, remember, it's a deletion, and what happens is the virus needs to be able to bind itself to the receptor of this particular gene in order to gain access to the immune system. And what's happening is this particular, the Delta 32, it doesn't function, right? Where the virus would be able to attach itself on, it's broken off, right? So that's where it has been deleted, that particular gene. Now, what's even crazier is that although someone is resistant to the virus with this particular mutation, there are still the HIV-1 tropic virus types that can still penetrate some of the genes, in particular the CXCR4. It can still multiply and bind to other receptors. So even though someone with this mutation is immune to especially HIV2, HIV1 can still be contracted through the CXCR4 and the other tropic types of HIV1. Remember, we discussed this. There's HIV1 and HIV2, and then there's subtypes of those, very similar to the herpes virus, right? Now, they were pretty much, and when I say they, I mean the community of researchers. So this is biologists, scientists, doctors, researchers, everyone, right? That's who I'm referring to as the they. They're saying that this particular mutation has been around for at least 2,500 years, and this is suggesting that there was a virus predating HIV that was much worse in order to allow this mutation to even occur. And for those who actually were able to survive it, they were actually able to pass the mutation down to their offspring. Again, this is interesting because, I don't know, maybe the black people who did have it were killed or died off from sickness, or during slavery times. Maybe enough blacks weren't tested enough for this gene. It's just really tripping me up that this mutation is not abundant in black people when we are said to carry the most variations in our genes. Now, what's also interesting is that there was a set of twins. They have the fertility treatment centers. And there was a set of twins who were born to an HIV positive dad and an HIV negative mom, and they chemically engineered this gene into the embryo. One of the twins actually was able to have two mutations, which grants them the full protection from the virus, at least as far as this gene was concerned, while the other twin only was able to receive one of the copies of this mutation. So this goes back to the question, who is carrying this the most, and how is it connecting us to the chimps, right? Because is this basically saying that, okay, those who have this gene in abundance, are they the ones who come from the chimps? Or are the people who didn't need to have the gene deleted the ones who came from the chimps, right? That's my question for this one. That's a tricky one to be further investigated, right? So, yeah, this is really crazy. So, and what's even more interesting is that is basically the cure. But the thing is, you would have to have the mutation genetically modified into your immune system prior to your existence. They do have something similar to stem cell implantation, where the host of the virus would have their own immune system suppressed with medicine and basically chemotherapy, and there would be a donor of cells. The person who has the mutation of the Delta 32, they donate their cells, and then those cells would be transplanted inside the host of the virus, and they carry it out and just see how long it takes the immune system to copy those Delta 32 genes and see if the immune system can further suppress, the virus. So this is really, really interesting to me. Because the body is such an amazing thing and technology is just so advanced now, in the point where we are as a people, it's just so amazing. But I was just digging and doing some reading, and they're saying that with this stem cell transplant, is basically, they're saying that it's effective, but a lot of people, they can't, because if you have to give up your own immune system, to take someone else's, that can take you out, right? So a lot of people, they don't make it, or, they get really sick, or they have other health complications, or it's just really painful and they don't get to make it all the way through. So it's been said to just be easier to just take the meds. And because of the day and age that we live in, a lot of people can just simply be undetectable due to, the meds, as opposed to undergoing this extensive stem cell transplant and not even being 100% sure that it's going to be effective. So, this is crazy. Now, I was just sitting here thinking about, as I was reading, I got a download basically stating that when you have terminal illness in the bloodline and as a part of your genetic makeup, it makes the sequence, the genetic sequence tainted, if you will, right? Or at least weaker than it could be, right? So in theory, this would also taint the communication line between you and your ancestors, right? It would kind of muffle, if you will, the ability to communicate with your ancestors now, because only 10% of Central and American people have this genetic modification. That would suggest that they migrated from somewhere, or they have ancestors that come from, somewhere in the northern European area, the Mediterranean area, or the Western Asian area. Now, if this mutation doesn't link you directly to your ancestors, I really don't know what can and what will. I wanted to go further into this, but I just kind of want to keep this thing moving, because remember, we discussed that there were more than one resistance. There's more than one resistance to the virus, and there's more than one type of virus. So as we know, as research has shown, you can, like I keep telling you guys, you can go ahead and Google this yourself. Go on Google Scholar, Google it, and just look it up. The information is out there. It's not like I'm pulling this from some archives, right? So yeah, this particular gene mutation stops the virus from attacking that particular gene. That particular gene doesn't have receptors for the virus to be able to bind to gain entry to the immune system. But someone who has this mutation can still catch the virus if they only have one copy, and through other means, through other types. So as we know, HIV-2 is pretty much, let me not say that, I'm going to stop myself. You can still catch it, but at least the virus doesn't attach itself to this particular gene, right? So yeah, I'm having a lot of fun doing research with this. I'm so sorry for yesterday, because I don't know why it sounded like that. It was going in and out. I'm going to try to re-record it, but I'll do that topic later, because I want to kind of keep the order that I'm going in, because what I'm doing is kind of organized and everything is leading to the next, because the last episode has to be the bridge between this series and the next. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. So, I hope you guys enjoyed your day. I hope all is well. I hope you're going to eat something good and get some rest. Drink some water, eat some fruit, and mind your business. Okay? I love y'all. Rest well. Peace.